So I'm just going to talk to you today about Tinder and, oh right, I really don't have a lot of experience with this kind of thing, so I've just written down everything that I want to say. I didn't want to make things too complicated for myself with any slides, so I'm sure we'll just help each other out through this process. And yes, I am imagining you all naked. So here we go. I'm Jackie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Tinder, specifically how to win at Tinder. But before all that, I'd like to introduce myself and explain a bit more about me, why I'm standing here in front of you today. My name's Jackie, and I work in the arts. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Working in the arts, it's all fun and vibrant, creative, and yeah, to an extent it is, but my job is in a theatre box office. Specifically, my job is to spend 37.5 hours a week printing off tickets, putting them into envelopes, which is very boring, but boredom is underrated. And I found that the job has given me time for, the headspace to do other things in my life, like I've been learning Mandarin Chinese, or Shui Zhongwen, I'm learning Chinese. I've been training in circus skills, been studying maths, been spending time on Twitter, and that's why I'm here, I think. But ultimately, I'm a 32-year-old full-time envelope stuffer. I'm ready for a change. So if anyone here has any advice for me how to move into a different kind of career path that's more technical, then I'd really appreciate your time and wisdom over lunch, maybe. But yeah, that'd be great. So why would anyone want to win at Tinder? Because winning is the right word to use, because it feels like a computer game. It's an app that it encourages you to rate people based on their image. So you can swipe left for no, or right for yes, and then you end up doing this, no, maybe no. And people will say to you, how many matches have you had? And how many dates have you been on? People want those cold, hard Tinder statistics, don't they? In my 6 months of Tindering, because it is more of a verb than a noun, I have matched with hundreds of men, and I've been on at least one or two dates every single week. But I failed miserably at Tinder, because there's this perception that it's a gateway to this, carefree, emotionally uninvolved hookups. And one of my friends who's in a relationship said, if I was single, I'd be on Tinder all the time. It looks like amazing fun. But I'm a 32-year-old heterosexual woman, and that has not been my experience of Tinder at all. My experience has been the opposite. It's taken me to dark places. So you look like nice people, and I'm going to share my miserable failures with you today so that you can avoid my mistakes. So I'll explain how I started using Tinder in the first place, which leads me to my first point. You should be ashamed of being on Tinder. Be ashamed that you're inadequate to function in society and form relationships in the real world, and you need to use some sordid little app to meet people. So if anyone asks you why you're on Tinder, just dismiss it as a bit of a laugh. Someone put it on your phone when you were in the toilets in the pub. You didn't go along with it, but it's there. And make sure you hide the icon on your home screen in your phone, because you don't want anyone to accidentally see that. If you're on the bus or whatever. Just if anyone asks you any follow-up questions, you don't even look at Tinder. You don't know why it's on your phone, although secretly you're Tindering all the time. So for most of my 20s, I was in a relationship, and the last time I'd been single, in 2005, the way people formed romantic or sexual relationships was very different. If you're out and about in a pub or a gig or an indie disco, then and you saw someone you liked, you had to walk up to them and say to them, "You're nice. I like you. Can I take you for a drink sometime?" And then hopefully they'd say yes, and you'd tear off a bit of your cigarette packet, because it was 2005 and you could still smoke indoors. You write your number down for them. So you couldn't just go on Facebook, because Facebook didn't exist. You couldn't go and look through your friends and look at their friends and see if you fancied someone and do a bit of background research. You had to actually speak to people with your mouth and your body language and your brain. So when I found myself single again last year, I'd been through that 6-month post-breakup mourning period when I watched all the Breaking Bad. But once I'd got that out of my system, and a bit of keeping up with the Kardashians as well, but once I'd done that, then I assumed that life would be the same, and you'd just find yourself standing at a bar and you'd see someone and you'd be like, "Oh, you're having a good night?" and then you'd interact. But no, it wasn't like that. I couldn't open up conversations in the same way. And I was older as well, so a lot of the men I might be interested in, they were in relationships, they got girlfriends or wives or some sort of ambiguous but complicated romantic circumstances that I just didn't want anything to do with. But I wasn't really too bothered at that point. You know, I've got a nice life, live in a nice house, have loads of nice friends, so I felt happy and enriched. People said to me, well, it'll happen when you least expect it. But I thought people could go and do one because I was very happy with my life. I was going rock climbing, going to indie discos, I was staying up past my bedtime, watching films with my housemate. But eventually we got to June 2015 and it was Glastonbury weekend and my friends having this great time, they were all buzzing off all these bands and all this excitement. You know, Glastonbury's amazing, except I wasn't at Glastonbury, I was in Manchester on my own. I was looking after my friend's cat while she was away. Cat, by the way, is just called Cat. So by mid-afternoon on Sunday, the longest conversation I'd had that weekend was with Kat. I was feeling a bit lonely, so I did it. I joined those 50 million people and I downloaded Tinder and started swiping. So that leads me to point 2 of how to win at Tinder. Don't put any gym mirror selfies up on there, just because for your profile, you can put, it's really streamlined, you don't have to fill in a questionnaire, you just put up a few images, a little statement about yourself. But you can't do this, you can't be slapdash about this, you need to curate your image, you know, as you would with any social media profile. So you've got to be really selective and edit it down, create the person that you want to be through these images. You know, you want to be active, dynamic, sociable, accomplished, magnetic, and just generally worthy of attention. So I chose 4 images to showcase what a well-adjusted, intelligent, charming, charismatic individual that I am. So my main picture, me and my bike. It's a really nice black frame single speed. I got a puncture this morning, but I still love it, I forgive it. And I was all dressed in black, like I am today, but I've got my white frame sunglasses on because, you know, I'm a bit cool. So that was my hook to get people interested. And then I got another picture of me at a festival, because, you know, I'm cool, I go to festivals. One of me hula hooping, one of me laughing with my friend Beth. And it felt like a bit of a betrayal in a way, because I'd taken that one on a weekend in London when it was just me and Beth, and we had these 48 hours together. It was really intense. We felt like Thelma and Louise, and we were going to change the world, and I felt like I don't need a boyfriend. But anyway, I'm sure Beth forgives me. So below that, I wrote my little who I am. I put, I'm a vegetarian who cycles and climbs, because those are 3 little tidbits of information that seem really appropriate and really important to me. So then I got it up there ready. It felt a bit smug and ready to go. You know, I look like this free-spirited, fun, all-round cool chick. I mean, obviously, I am, look at me. But so then I started swiping, and within minutes, I'm getting matches. One of the first to match with me is David. He looks nice enough. All his pictures are selfies of him in the gym mirror, though, when he's wearing the same grey hoodie. But, you know, he looks nice enough. He looks nice enough, that's fine. So we chat for a bit, and then generally, you know, where do you work, that sort of thing. And he tells me he's a nice guy. And we suggest meeting up for a drink. So, you know, I don't think this is going to be an epic romance, but I'll give it a go. Just before I go any further, I've obviously changed people's names and details and stuff, so really hope he's not here today, but anyway. So we arranged to go for a drink after work, as you do, and we meet up in town in Manchester, and he's waiting for me on a bench outside Burger King in his grey hoodie. So I smile, hello, go forward for a bit of a hug, and he physically recoils like that. But that's okay, not everyone likes hugging, they're not into it, that's fine. So we go to a bar in the Northern Quarter, and, you know, he's a nice guy, so he buys me a small glass of red wine, and we find a table near the back, near the toilets. So then he sits down first, and I go to sit down next to him, so it's not like a job interview type situation, you know, with 2 people sitting next to each other. And as I do that, he moves away. But it's okay, he's probably just nervous, you know, this is a weird situation, it's fine, it's gonna be fine. We're just 2 people having a chat in the pub. So 20 minutes later, and I'm looking for an exit. He's already told me that he doesn't like cyclists, and he thinks vegetarianism is a waste of time. And the table at the back near the toilets was an error, because I'm cornered, and there's this earthy whiff of poor plumbing coming from the toilets. I can't see a way out of this situation, and he's telling me all about his boring life, and he doesn't like his job, and his friends are annoying him. And yeah, I get it, he's a 28-year-old man, he just feels a bit unfulfilled by life, but, you know, I'm stuck there sitting and listening. I don't really want to be. So then he starts complaining about his previous Tinder dates and, you know, how girls always want to friend zone him because girls like bad boys, he tells me, and he's a nice guy and nice guys never get the girl. And it's a weeknight, but there's a security guy on the door, and I start thinking, well, what could I do to get myself thrown out of this situation and then make sure this never has to be repeated? Maybe I could throw a drink at someone, maybe that would be enough. Or maybe I could just go and ask the doorman if he could help me out and throw me out. And all these thoughts are going through my head. Maybe I should ask the girl on the bar if she could do something about this situation and just make it end. Because it but then David starts telling me about he owns his own flat, and it's actually just up the road, actually. You know, well, he owns a second flat too in Fallowfield, and he rents out to some students. But anyway, the flat he lives in, he owns that. And his housemate's away on holiday, so maybe you could go and watch a film. And then at that point, I'm thinking, what would happen if I just picked up my bag and I just walked out? Because I don't really want to take things any further with this guy, but I feel like he's bought me a drink, and now he feels like I owe him something. So I make my excuses and I leave, and it's getting late, I've got work tomorrow, it's actually 8:30, but anyway. So no, it's been really nice talking to you, it was really nice meeting you. Yeah, no thanks, I don't need you to walk me back to my bike, it's fine, thanks, yeah, goodbye. So, moving on to my next mistake that I've made that I would like you to avoid in your Tindering career. You need to set your geographical boundaries, because you can swipe for quite a long distance, it's in miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever you fancy. So, like I've told you already, I'm a cyclist, and I don't really want to be commuting to go and meet someone on a date, someone who I potentially won't see ever again. And you need to make sure that you set yourself these boundaries as well. Because I set my Tinder to about 3 miles, because that feels like a realistic amount that I'd want to get on my bike and cycle to meet someone. Definitely don't want to get on a bus to meet someone, or a train. But, the problem is people move around, and consequently their phones move around. So that's how I matched with Ewan, because he works in Leeds, but he was in Manchester for a meeting. Disappointingly, we were chatting and we seemed to be getting on well, and I was weighing it up in my head. Do I want to go and meet someone in Leeds? Not really, but we're getting on well. So eventually we negotiate and we agree to meet in Huddersfield, which is halfway. And I like Huddersfield anyway, so I'm happy to go, and have like a little midweek adventure, jump on the train and go and meet this mysterious man. So we went to Huddersfield's version of a little indie rock bar, and it was cute. They got all these posters of the White Stripes on the wall, and he's really interesting, really, really interesting, because he works as a museum archivist and used to live in London. And he's worked at some of the most famous museums in London. And he likes running 10Ks and all these things. And I felt really flattered that this man who seemed so mature and accomplished and successful was showing an interest in me. Because, I'm just someone who puts tickets into envelopes. So we held hands on the way back to the station, and he kissed me goodnight on the platform. And then the next week I went to Leeds, and again we went to the pub, had a nice conversation, and I just felt he was really charming and interesting and worldly. And then he suggested we go back to his flat. So, I agreed, and he got all these real ales in the kitchen and all this expensive coffee, and I thought, wow, this guy's so mature. And but then as soon as we got back to his flat, things really changed between us, and there was just this weird tension. And so I was like, well, what do you want to do now? Should we watch a film maybe? And he said, oh, why don't we watch Don't Tell the Bride? Okay, yeah. Yeah. So we got on the iPlayer, put on an episode of Don't Tell the Bride, a repeat, which I'd already seen, and I was too polite to say I've already watched this one. So we watched that, and then we watched another episode of Don't Tell the Bride. And then I said to him, so how long have you been single? Thinking he'd say maybe 2 years. And he said, 27 years and 8 months. Oh. And then it all started coming out about how he felt really unfulfilled by life, and he felt really anxious, and I missed my train, so we stayed up all night talking, and told me all these things about his life, and I felt privileged that he was felt comfortable telling me these things, and I was trying to say all these supportive things and just be really helpful and kind. And then in the morning, when I left on my own, and the pubs were opening, so I went into a bar and I said, "Can I have a cocktail, please? I don't care, just put some champagne in it, please," because it was a really draining night, as you can imagine, to feel like it was a therapy session. Plus, I'd had to spend about £20 on the train and inconvenience myself going to Leeds. So don't make that mistake. And I didn't see him again because he texted me later to say that he never liked me in the first place. But anyway, this leads me to my next point. You can't regret these things. You can't dwell on them. You need to let that happen and move on. So early in my Tinder career, I went on a few dates with Stephen, and he was really nice, another cyclist like me, and he'd just come back from spending 6 months in Berlin, and so that was interesting. He'd had to come back to Manchester because he couldn't find work in Germany, and he was just working part-time in a bar to support himself and trying to find a job where he'd be able to use the English degree that he'd worked so hard to achieve. But the bar work that's fine for the time being. So we had this handful of dates, and I felt like I had a really nice time. And at the end of our third or fourth day, he was kissing me goodnight, and he said he was moving house at the weekend, so he'd text me the next week and we'd figure out when to meet up. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, you're moving, that's stressful, you do that just whenever you're ready. So over the weekend, I sent him a few messages, hope your move is going okay, and I'm having a fun weekend, and I hope see you soon, blah, blah, blah. A few days go by, no reply. I'm like, it's fine, he's moving, maybe he's picked up some extra shifts at work, he's a busy man. And then a week later, still no reply, so that's when I realised he'd ghosted me. And really, realistically, he's just a man I've spent a bit of time with, and I should have just said, okay, that's fine. He didn't want to see me again, move on. But I couldn't accept it, I couldn't move on. And he'd really hurt my feelings, and I felt really empty and sad inside, like a little squeezed out lemon rind. So I did all those horrible, disgusting things that you probably shouldn't admit to a room full of strangers. I deliberately cycled past the bar where he works just to see if he was on shift. But I was too shy to go in, and then I cycled past his flat. Not that I'm going to gain any information from that. And I knew that we had a lot of mutual friends from the cycling scene, so I just went around asking people for, little bits, scraps of information, and from that I discovered that he was still alive, but nothing more. So logically, he just didn't want to see me again, and he just didn't know how to tell me, and that should be fine. And the way he behaved demonstrated that he didn't really deserve a place in my life anyway, but I couldn't accept it, and it took me weeks to get over that one. And I'd sit at work, stuffing those envelopes, running over things I'd said in my head, thinking, should I have said that? Did he think I was an idiot? Did he think I was too forward? Did he think I was too... did I wear the wrong leggings? Did he not like those leggings that I wore with roses on? So just, whatever you do, don't do that. Don't waste your energy, your emotions. Just accept it, put it in a box, and move on. Because dwelling on it just won't help you. Moving on to my next point. We've all done this, but don't do it. Don't stalk someone on social media. And I'm not going to patronise you by explaining. We all know how to do it. Some of us are probably doing it right now. I'm at Northwest Jacky on Twitter, if you want. And I spell Jacky with a Y. So yeah, my friends call this stalking, because once you've got someone's name or their phone number, that you're off. Everything is there at your fingertips. You can find long abandoned MySpace profiles, their liked videos on YouTube. And I have done this. You can find their eBay feedback history. You can probably find photos of them dicking around with their mates in the sixth form common room, and these are all valuable pieces of information that you can use to piece together this picture of someone. My friend Beth she's the queen of this, and GCHQ should consider employing her. She's taken it too far though in the past. She once deleted her entire Instagram account because she liked a photo that the ex-girlfriend of someone she'd been talking to on Tinder but hadn't actually met. And it was a 12-month-old image. She'd gone deep into that Instagram feed. So the only logical way out of this situation, the social embarrassment, was to delete her Instagram. And I myself, I once found myself scrolling through the news feed of the mum of someone I had talked to on Tinder, and then I had to just walk away. So when I went for a date with Craig, I thought, no stalking. No, I'm just going to let this be whatever it is. And I'm not going to go and find any background information. I'm just going to, he's told me he's a trainee tattoo artist, he likes going to gigs and he's from Chorley, that's fine. That's enough information to start with. So we turn up to the bar, usual hello, how are you, nice to meet you. Oh yeah, I'll have a small glass of red wine please, because that's a little tip for you there. Small glass of red wine, that's not enough to get you too tipsy on a date, so you're not going to start blabbing too much. That's just enough to warm you up. So it's fine, we're just chatting about work and stuff. He's got about this far into his pint and he just turns to me and says, I don't know about you, but I do a lot of drugs. Oh God. So up to that point, we'd just been two people having a nice chat, and then suddenly and inexplicably, this is a therapy session and he's telling me all about how he takes all these drugs and he just feels like it's out of control and he can't stop, and he knows that this is just his way of dealing with because he's never grieved for the father his father died when he was really young, and he's never really dealt with that, so he's just like filling that black hole with all these drugs, and he's got all these people in his life who are enabling this, these so-called friends, and I feel really sorry for him, and I can just feel this unhappiness emanating from him. So we talk and I try my best to be nice and listen, and after the date I keep talking to him because he does make me laugh as well, and we meet up a few more times. Then one Tuesday night my phone rings at 4 a.m. and it's him, so I answer. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Do you need something? And he just says, no, I'm fine. I just wanted to hear your voice. Oh, okay, so what are you up to at this time on a Tuesday? He's like, oh, an old mate came round and I gave him a tattoo and he paid me in MDMA. So I decided to end things. And after I'd ended it, then I decided to stalk him on the internet. So I found his Instagram, it took me about 2 seconds, and there it all was, all these photos of him with dilated pupils, out on nights out, and I've sort of contradicted myself there, because maybe you should actually, you need to find that sweet spot of stalking a little bit. So bear that in mind. Now we're rolling through to the conclusion now. So I've told you about a few of my miserable failures. There's more that I could tell you about, so if you want to ask, feel free. But this leads me to my last point now, stop trying. Because I told you I'd failed miserably at Tinder, but that might have been a bit of a fib. Because in November I went for a Tinder date with Kieran, and reluctantly. Because by then I spent like 4 bordering on 5 months of Tindering, and I was getting really jaded, and just, yeah, it was taking over my life in ways that I didn't enjoy. So started having a bit of a conversation with Kieran on Tinder, and turned out his supervisor at work is Cheska, who's a good friend of mine. I know her through Oxfam, and she told me he's been unlucky in love, but he's a really genuine guy and you'll get on well. So I trust Cheska, and at that point then I felt more obligated to Cheska to go on this date with Kieran rather than obligated to him. So we arranged to meet on a Wednesday. That's always a good date night, because then you can always, if it's not going well, you can say I've got work tomorrow. So yeah, I was reluctant because I was exhausted with this whole process of keeping up with messages on Tinder and trying to be charming and witty and engaging and trying to remember all these details about all these different people that I was chatting to at the same time. So I thought, well, I'll go for this drink with Kieran, and then I'm going into retirement and I'm going back to analog dating, where you actually meet people face to face. So work was busy that day and it was all cold and raining, and I just got to lunchtime and thought, I can't be bothered. I'll turn my phone on, send him a message to say thanks but no thanks, and that's saving us both time in the long run, and money, to be honest, because it gets expensive going on all these dates, especially when you're going to Northern Quarter bars, because the prices there are like London. So yeah, it was Wednesday and I'd already made this arrangement to go hula hooping with my friend Fran at this hula hooping class. God, what sort of person am I? Going to hula hooping classes. So yeah, I went along and I'd forgotten to take my water bottle, and hula hooping is quite thirsty work, so I was really thirsty. And then at the end of the class, I was hanging around chatting to Fran, and we're talking about the weekend and what we're doing and stuff, and where to buy good sports bras. And I was like, oh, do I have to go on this date? I cannot even with Tinder anymore. Oh, hashtag so over it. But you know, I went to meet Kieran, and he was waiting for me outside the little Morrison's in Piccadilly Gardens. I was 15 minutes late, dehydrated. I hadn't washed my hair for 4 days, and I'd already got this text drafted in my head that I was going to send him the next day to say, thanks, nice to meet you, but you know, don't really want to see you again. But I was completely wrong, and Cheska was right. Me and Kieran, we got on really well. He's a vegetarian, he cycles, he's into climbing. He voted Green in the general election. There were 3 kisses in the Christmas card that he wrote to me, except it was one of those non-specific season's greetings cards because we're both atheists. And by the new year, I deleted Tinder from my phone and I'd replaced it with a Mandarin dictionary app called Pleco. And if anyone needs a Mandarin dictionary app, then I recommend that one very much. Kieran would be here today, but he's actually playing ice hockey in Coventry, and I really hope his team wins. So did I win at Tinder? Maybe, because I'm spending time with a really lovely young man, and it was Tinder that brought us together. But maybe we would have met some other way because we go to the same climbing centre, and he literally lives 5 minutes down the road from me. But overall, I feel like I lost because Tinder made me feel very bleak inside at my Tindering height, or maybe that should be Tindering depth. I was going on 3 dates a week. And Tinder was doing bad things to my brain and my emotional well-being. I was neglecting friendships, and I missed Fran's birthday party to go on a Tinder date. What a bad friend. I was sitting at work, because I spend a lot of time on my own stuffing those envelopes. I don't have a window, so I was sitting there feeling miserable. And then I'd go home and I'd feel miserable, and I'd go to bed early, and I couldn't be bothered to eat some days. So even with a bit of distance from then and now, I'm not really sure why I kept repeating that pattern of behaviour, partly because Tinder makes it really easy and it's just always there and available. Maybe it was a little bit of excitement out of this mundane daily life that I have, and maybe it was also because I do actually genuinely enjoy meeting people, and that's partly why I'm here today, because it's nice to meet all of you. But sort of maybe felt a bit of weird sense of responsibility to all these men I was meeting, and they kept telling me all these emotional struggles they were having, because mental health is still something that we as a society struggle to acknowledge, to discuss and treat. And according to Calm, in the UK, 12 men kill themselves every day. But how many more than that are suffering silently with depression, with anxiety, with other mental health disorders? And I'm not a professional, so I don't know, but anecdotally, I do know that there are many, many young men out there who are really struggling. Because blokes are just supposed to be blokes. They're supposed to talk about the football, they're supposed to talk about who's the new presenters on Top Gear, and they're not supposed to talk about their feelings or how to cope within the society that places so many expectations on them to be achieving in their careers and their relationships. So is Tinder responsible for this mental health crisis that I have anecdotally seen? Of course not, no. Tinder's just an app. It's just a tool like Match.com or Grindr or any of the other dating apps. It just facilitates those meetings and encounters between people. But from my experience, we are really at a crisis point for the mental well-being, especially of young men. And at that policy level, we definitely need better funding for mental health service provision and, you know, access to mental health services. But on a more personal level, I think we really need to encourage each other to be more open, more honest, and more supportive with each other. Tinder's a game, but life should be a collaboration. Thank you for listening.